the Saiyan who was excluded and under a futile pretext was thrown into nothingness to a terrible death by King Vegeta. Well, at least that's what he thought at the time. Maybe Broly would have brought a greater impact to the warrior race, but envy spoke louder. Indeed, he is different from everyone else and has something monstrous inside him. Today we're going to talk about the pure-blooded Saiyan who was born blessed, the heir to the original form of the Saiyans, Broly. Are you ready for this great event? Then subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and turn on the notification bell. The awakening of the original form would be more than a transformation. It would be a collective return to the ancestral state, something that would redefine the paths of power in Dragon Ball. Want to know what's coming? Stay until the end, because I'll wrap this up. Born under a place where darkness hovered and cursed with a power that no one around him could understand, Broly came into the world not as an heir, soldier, or prince, but as an exception. A Saiyan who surpassed limits from the cradle, whose mere presence shook the energy sensors of the entire planet Vegeta. His birth power even surpassed that of Prince Vegeta, the King's son. And that was exactly what sealed his fate. Broly was excluded, feared, and exiled. But maybe deep down he was never just a warrior who was too strong. Maybe Broly was the final echo of the true form of the Saiyans, of what they were before being tamed by the Cold family, before the colonization of their race as mercenary soldiers. Maybe he was the primitive spark that still burned in the heart of a species molded by wars that weren't theirs, a gift from the gods to the Saiyans, who never truly knew the value this warrior held. We know about Yamoshi, and maybe this was a reincarnation bringing back the primitive, free, and kind side of the race that was lost a long time ago. And he has all these qualities now that we know him better, pure of heart and strong, and he will be the one to bring this old and new era to the Saiyan race. A child in an adult's body, learning everything with such mastery that his genius is also on another level. Just by watching Gohan pushing himself to the limit with his beast form to try and stop Goku's ultra instinct, he has already assimilated that and lived up to who he truly is. And the true form of the Saiyans itself is brutality at the reach of those who master it, and Broly is the one evolving the most towards it. Let's remember that at the end of the Granola arc in the Dragon Ball Super manga, more specifically in Chapter 87, Goku has a short but very meaningful conversation with Whis. This scene happens after the battle against Gas, when Goku, Vegeta, and Granola are already calmer, and Whis shows up to take them away from planet Cereal. At that moment, Goku, curious about the recent events and reflecting on everything that happened, directly asks Whis about the so-called strongest warrior in the universe. Goku asks, "Do you know who this strongest warrior in the universe is?" And Whis responds calmly, with his typical smile. Who knows? The strongest in the universe constantly changes, depending on who is alive and who keeps evolving. This answer has several layers of meaning and sparked many theories among fans. Whis doesn't give a direct answer, because he rarely does. He prefers to teach through reflection and doubt, forcing Goku to think about what it truly means to be the strongest. But he also makes it clear that the title of strongest in the universe isn't fixed. It changes depending on effort and personal development. In other words, there is no objective or unchanging answer. Now, could Whis be talking about Broly? The answer is yes, it's possible. Whis had already shown interest in Broly before. When Broly first appears in the movie Dragon Ball Super, Broly, he witnesses Goku and Vegeta fighting against Broly. Whis watches carefully and even plays around a bit with Broly when the Berserk Saiyan tries to attack him. Whis dodges his attacks easily, but also doesn't underestimate Broly and shows that he's keeping an eye on him. At the end of the movie, when Goku brings food to Broly on planet Vampa and says he wants to fight him again, Whis comments to Beerus about how dangerous and promising that Saiyan is. In the Granola arc, although Broly doesn't take part, we know he's training with Goku and Vegeta on Beerus' planet. That means that while Granola and Gas were clashing, Broly was also evolving. He wasn't stagnant. On the contrary, he was learning to control his monstrous powers with the help of the two strongest warriors in the universe. Whis' words, therefore, could very well be referring to Broly, especially transformation that defies logic and form. His strength grows irrationally, with no visible limits, as if it's tied to a primal power source. He hasn't even come close to his peak yet. Furthermore, as someone who is always calmly observing everything with wisdom, Whis doesn't speak about absolute power, but about potential, growth, and possibilities. Broly, in that sense, represents exactly that, a bottomless well of raw and primal power that can surpass anyone if refined the right way. So yes, even without saying it directly, it's very plausible that Whis was thinking about Broly when he answered Goku. Or maybe he was talking about Broly, Goku, Vegeta, Granola, and even Frieza, who soon after appears with his new Black Frieza form, because all these characters are in constant evolution. But there's something very interesting here. Whis' phrase shows that the strongest is always the one who continues to evolve. And in that, Broly fits perfectly. He is the one who, even isolated from the world, even excluded from birth, continues to grow. And if refined correctly, he could become the strongest warrior in the universe, and maybe even beyond that. And this becomes even more evident now. In this new cycle of power where gods and monsters walk side by side, it is Broly who begins to awaken what can be called the original form of the Saiyans. Not a taught transformation, but a primal, intuitive, and untamable state. Something that Gohan also inherited, but not like Broly. Broly tragically represents the Saiyan who never fit into the molds created by the royal caste. He did not grow up in pride, but in abandonment. When his father, Paragus, saw that King Vegeta was going to discard his son as if he were space trash, he reacted with desperation and revolt. He fled with Broly to Vampa, a desolate, monstrous, and cruel planet where daily survival was the only training. In that place, Broly did not learn to fight like a Saiyan warrior. He learned to survive like a beast. His movements, his adaptation, his resistance, all were shaped by a wild environment that few would endure for more than a day. Years later, upon returning to galactic society, Broly did not understand commands, military loyalty, or noble titles. He only knew instinct. And behind all that instinct, there was a power that had never been refined, but that existed in a raw, pure state, and therefore, closer to the origin than any other form. The irony is that, in the past, this origin was forgotten. Over time, the Saiyans organized into castes, into battalions, into a society that handed over the fate of their children to the strength of their kicks and punches from the earliest days of life. But before all that, the first Saiyans of planet Sadala, their ancestral homeland, were fierce beings who possessed a kind of misunderstood energy, which did not derive only from hatred or rage, but from a kind of connection with the nature of the universe itself. This wild form was erased over the ages, suppressed by forms like the Super Saiyan and its variations. However, Broly did not learn these forms. He did not follow the same path as Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, or Trunks. His power emerged from nothing, like an eruption. And that is why many believe what he is awakening is something older. It is the original Super Saiyan, or even something prior to any known nomenclature, the primal state of the Saiyan, free from conventions and techniques. Unlike the others, Broly does not need carefully crafted emotional triggers. He doesn't go through godly training. He doesn't need angelic teachings to break his limits. When threatened, when cornered, Broly explodes. But this explosion is not disorganized. It follows an internal logic that reflects the very nature of what the Saiyans once were. There is a chaotic harmony in his blows, a savagery that resembles more the roar of an ancestral animal than the discipline of a trained warrior. And that's where his form begins to distance itself from the others. Because while Goku reaches Ultra Instinct by silencing his thoughts, and Vegeta attains Ultra Ego by surrendering to destructive pride, Broly transforms simply by being himself. It's as if his very existence were already in tune with this supreme state. What few understand is that Broly is not just a powerful individual, he is a symbol of what the Saiyans could have been. If the race's history had followed a different path, without the Tsufurugin's domination, without the Cold family's influence, without submission to Frieza, perhaps the Saiyans would have developed their strength in a more organic way, more connected to their nature. In that alternate world, Broly would not be the monster on the fringes. He would be the model, the ideal warrior, the link to forgotten ancestors. The very legend of the Super Saiyan, which emerged as a myth around a warrior who appears every 1,000 years, does not seem to describe Goku, nor Vegeta, but rather Broly. He is the only one whose energy simply grows without limits, whose presence threatens the balance of things not out of malice, but because he is something the universe doesn't know how to contain. What the new Dragon Ball Super movie brought to light was not just the inclusion of Broly as an ally, but a slow and dangerous revelation. Broly's power is still adjusting. He is learning. For the first time, he has access to teachings, to friends, to a minimally stable environment. And even so, his energy continues to escape control, indicating he is still far from reaching his peak. And it's at this point that the most fascinating theory comes in. What if Broly, as he continues to grow, not only becomes stronger but ends up awakening the original form of the Saiyans definitively? Something beyond the legendary Super Saiyan. A state that manifests not only physically, but spiritually, emotionally, energetically. A return to Genesis. The traits of this form are already perceptible in his transformations. Unlike the blazing gold of traditional Super Saiyans, Broly's ki takes on green tones, an unstable energy, closer to a solar explosion than a concentrated aura. His eyes lose focus, his veins protrude, his musculature expands in an almost grotesque way. Everything in him screams unrefined power. But what if that is precisely what makes this transformation so powerful? Unlike the others, Broly doesn't need to control this force. He needs to integrate it. And maybe this integration is beginning to happen. Whis, observing Broly, realizes this. Beerus too. There is something in Broly that not even the angels can fully explain. If Broly, by any chance, finds the balance point between his mind and his power, something he doesn't even fully understand yet, the release of the original Saiyan form won't be just a personal upgrade. It will be a direct impact on the very DNA of the race. This could mean a reconfiguration of everything that is known about Saiyan potential. Goten, Trunks, Pan, even Goku and Vegeta, all of them could be affected by witnessing this transformation, as if an ancient key were turned inside each of them. The awakening of the original form would be more than a transformation. It would be a collective return to the ancestral state, something that would redefine the paths of power in Dragon Ball. And there is a deep reason for Broly to carry this legacy. He was the only one who was never corrupted by the system. He did not grow under the shadow of caste pride, nor was he shaped by masters, planets, or hierarchies. He did not seek power. He merely survived. And that makes him pure. Deep down, Broly is the purest Saiyan of all. Even Goku, who was sent to Earth as a baby and created his own path, spent his life being taught, guided, perfected. Broly did not. He is like a dormant volcano, with lava boiling inside, ready to erupt at any moment. And when it erupts, the world of gods, angels, and elaborate forms may have no response. It's no coincidence that many fans see Broly as the true heir of strength. What Vegeta represents in pride and Goku in purity of spirit, Broly embodies in cosmic brutality. In the end, Broly does not need to be polished, tamed, or molded like the other warriors were. He needs to be understood, welcomed, perhaps guided, but never repressed. Because what pulses within him is not just strength, it is the living memory of what the Saiyans were before they were enslaved, before they were soldiers, before they were weapons. He is the loose thread of the tapestry of time that refuses to fit in, and because of that, may rewrite it. And if this original form truly manifests, then Broly will not be just a legendary warrior. He will be the seed of a new era, where the Saiyans may truly be reborn. Not as soldiers, but as what they were meant to be from the beginning. Beings of raw energy, connected to the purest instinct of the universe. And when that day comes, it won't be the sound of transformation screams that echoes through the skies, but the primal roar of a warrior who never needed crowns, nor thrones, nor divine blessings. Only freedom,